Matt here, Holub Project. How we doing today? Today I thought this would be a pretty good idea. I don't know. We'll find out when we get into it. But the idea is to connect the steering column to the rack and pinion steering. And let me show you the space constraints that we have to work with. And if you remember correctly, this is the Tinworks front end kit, if you want to call it that, with the rack and pinion. And we're going to adapt that to the standard non-tilt column of a 69 GMC. So let's take a gander. Alright, so what we've got going on here is we've got our standard column coming through, poking out of the firewall, and I'm not sure, hold on a second, let me move some stuff. If you're going to be able to see, let me back out. Where are you? Right there. So, we have a very, very tight area to work with. We're going to basically come out of here, zig down right away, and then zig back, and then attach. So, as luck would have it, we have, this is a 36 inch or 36 spline count, 3/4 inch diameter output, and also the exact same down there on the rack and pinion. So what kind of tools do we have here that we're going to play with here? Well, we've got our Summit Racing 770136 3/4 inch double D steering shaft, and they call it a double D, not for reasons that you would think so, but the reason is that that side looks like a D and the other side looks like a D, and that's how you get your double D. Then we've got our not cheap Borgenson U-joints. Please don't cheap out here, folks. If you're going to be driving down the road, this is kind of like number 2 priority, or probably number 1 priority, right in front of the brakes. So if these fail, you're dying, or going in the ditch at the very least. Okay, so the very first thing we got going on here is a 36 count spline, 3/4 in diameter, to a 3/4 double D. We have 2 of those, and as I said before, one's for the rack and pinion and the other one is for the steering shaft. Part number on that is 013449. Then we have ourselves a double D to double D U-joint here. And all that is exactly what one would think. Double D on that end, double D on this end. Take that, set it right there like so. And then we have our steering shaft support, and we'll have to make ourselves a bracket for that, I reckon. Another thing about these steering shafts is you want to make sure that everything is in phase when you build these things. And by in phase, what I'm talking about here is you want your like ends of the U-joints to line up with one another. So if you got, let's just say, like that, you don't want it to be like that, like this. Okay? So, otherwise you'll have all sorts of kink going on, you know, and you don't want any of that. So, what can we do? Well, we've got, 36 inches of double D rod. We can keep on hacking and cutting and wasting and cutting and hacking, and I measured twice and I cut once and it's still wrong. Or is that I cut twice and measured once and it's still wrong? Whatever. You can use your intermediate shaft. So take a look here. This would be your old shaft that runs from your steering shaft to your old gearbox where your rag joint is, and that connects to your old steering box, you know, that controls all the linkages and everything. All you're going to do is, much like a U-joint, you're going to melt the two plastic worms out of there, and then you're going to separate the two shafts, just like that. The plastic worms go all the way around here in two spots, and that's what you call a collapsible steering shaft. So if you were to take impact, the idea behind it is that the plastic worms break and this shaft slides into this shaft, and you don't get poked in the chest by your steering wheel. But we're going to take this, whatever it is, 12 inches or so. We've cut the other end off here where the rubber boot was, and you can see you end up with 3/4 inch double D. Let's get this thing set up and try and get to building here. I'm not sure what kind of success rate we're going to have. I mean, we've got about 4 foot of double D to play around with, so what can go wrong? Let me set you up and we'll try. Okay, so let me kind of show you what's going on here. I don't know how well you're going to be able to see down in here. There you go. Okay, so here's your set screw, or grub screw. You have 2 of them. That way this thing doesn't walk out on you. If you plan on using these set screws, go ahead and get it set where you want, and then dimple your shaft with a drill bit. That way this set screw has something to bite down into or set down into. I've always had really good luck with that. And then, you know, use the wallet chain and suspenders method. Put your Loctite on your set screw, and then tighten your jam nut down so you got double protection there. Also, don't set this your steering shaft so far through here that you can't get full rotation, and I'll show you what I mean here. So if you go ahead and you stick this in so far, like so, can you see that okay? If you got that rocked all the way in there and you're trying to do that, you aren't going to have full range of motion. You're gonna end up stopping yourself. So make sure you're at least flush with the bottom or whatever you're trying to achieve. There you go. Because if you're in there, you're just hurting yourself. You can go one way, can't go this other way. Okay, so flush or a little bit back. All right, we're going to go ahead and take and put our spline shaft up on our steering, and you can see here that my bearing is missing. I've got one of them on order, and then you got your spring for the tension, and then your big washer that fits there. But I think we're okay to fool around, at least for right now, demonstration purposes. That'll slide right on there, no big deal. However, you have a little flat spot there, and that'll work perfect for that grub screw. So go ahead and line that bad boy up just like so. Make sure you're not fired all the way down in the hole there. And then I'm just going to tighten this just a little bit so it doesn't slide off there and whack me in the melon when I crawl underneath. Okay, so we're looking pretty okay. You can kind of see how far down in there we are, and I apologize, this is absolutely like brake lines everywhere, proportioning valve in the way. I don't know how much better I can do for you. Hold on. Okay. So now our next step here, I hope this works for me the way I want it to. We have to put our swivel on. Because, I mean, we are really up against some tight constraints here, as I showed you earlier. This is our motor mount pedestal. We have to basically sneak underneath that and then attach it to our rack and pinion. And then we'll just kind of angle it down. I bet you my arm was in the way that entire time. We'll just kind of do something like that for right now. Let me put a grub screw in there. I don't know how far we're sticking into the U-joint portion. Oh, we're in there. We're in there quite a ways. Okay, I'm gonna crawl under there, and I'm gonna slide this other splined U-joint on here to what you're looking at right there in the center of your screen, which is the rack and pinion. This would be where your phasing comes into play on these U-joints also. So you would obviously be putting this on last. But I think that we can work backwards. Take and put this upper U-joint there. Like that. And then we put a grub screw in this, and I'll bring you under here and you can see what I'm talking about. I'll get some lighting set up and we'll make it a real photo shoot. Here we are, we're underneath the car now, or truck rather. You can see we've got our rack and pinion. You can see where we're coming down from the top from our steering shaft. And we have a little bit of room to make up here with our last piece. Now, let me zoom out. There we are. It's awfully tight under here. So this is the point where you can really spend a lot of time. We can shorten this, and I'll call that, like, you know, our intermediate shaft. Well, we can shorten that and bring this U-joint up a little bit, and then you got to watch out for your exhaust manifold, your brake lines, and your frame. Also, we have a nut in the way. We have our engine mount pedestal in the way, and so we're up against a whole bunch of things right here. We can take a little bit of, you know, try and shorten some angles so they aren't so sharp. Like I said, you can wrap yourself around the spokes here pretty tight. Again, this is a rotating piece, so you got to make sure that your grub screw isn't going to touch here. You got to make sure you got plenty of room for everything. So we might move this down a little bit right there. Take the intermediate shaft, move it up a little bit, move this down some, and then we're left with whatever our tape measure tells us, which is probably about 3 inches. So let's cut ourselves a little 3-inch chunk and see if it fits in there. Well, here I am. We're kind of figuring this bracket thing out, and I've written everything down, and I'll share the information with you because no one else needs to spend like a month and a half, couple hours a day trying to figure this thing out. Pretty ridiculous, honestly. Lots of sharp angles, lots of let's put it that way. So let's take a look here. We got our U-joint here about maxed out. Got this U-joint down here about maxed out. Got this U-joint down here going into the steering shaft. That one's actually pretty straight. And I've kind of designed this bracket here. We're, away from the header there. And then maybe you can kind of see, let me see. This is your, if you focus, this is your pinch point down in here. That little steering shaft, we'll call it like the third steering shaft going down in there. That one is really close to that motor mount. I've got this plate designed up. It's pretty easily made. Like I said, I've got everything written down. We're going to tack weld that into place, and we're going to spray it up. I didn't record any of me making this bracket because it literally is hours of taking it apart, putting it back on, grinding, etc. But I'll share with you the lengths of the steering shafts. I'll share with you the size of the bracket. I won't be able to share the angle. I'll try and put an angle finder on it, but basically the two pieces you put together, and then wherever they lay, tack it in, and kind of go from there. But let me throw a couple of tack welds on here. I'll take it apart or take it off of the truck. We'll full weld it, wrap the corners, maybe put a gusset on there, and I'll bring you back when it's cool and painted. Okay, so here's the bracket. I'm gonna say, what do you think? Maybe a 30-degree angle leaned over, and maybe a 30-degree angle pointing towards the back. Made the gusset to fit right here. That should be really nice. I'm thinking everything should work out okay. The gusset might be a little bit tall now that I'm looking at it, because there's a big nut that fits right here for the eyelet, the supporting eyelet. But we might be able to weld it down there, something like that. Either way, it'll give a nice structural stability to it. Alright, so what was the size of the bracket that supports the steering shaft? Let's take a gander. Okay, so overall height of the bracket is going to be 2 5/8. That would be 1 3/4 inch plus 7/8 of an inch. You got your 3/4 inch hole in the center and your 1 3/4 inch wide. So that leaves you a 1/2 inch all the way around the 3/4 inch hole, so it looks nice. And the plate that goes down on the frame is, oh, look at that. Well, that's nice. Maybe we'll make some more if we have some interest. Post your interest down below if you want a Holub project koozie. Plate down below, about 4 1/4 inches long. You got 2 1/2 inches between centers here. 1 3/4 inches tall, which matches the hoop over here. And then you're 7/8 inch off of the end and 7/8 inch off the bottom of the bracket, so your holes are centered. You can radius your edges here if you'd like to make it look nice like I did, but like I said before, putting the two together, that's on you, because it all kind of falls into place, and it's just kind of how it all goes together. Okay, so as promised, I told you we were going to get you the dimensions for the steering shaft, so let's go ahead and do that. Everything's turning out pretty splendid. So here we are. You're going to have to use your imagination. Between the two U-joints, 2 3/4 inches. I went ahead and welded that on because those set screws are hard to get to in that area. So I'm not going to risk any vibration coming loose there, or it falling in my can shed thing. So 2 3/4 there, 6 1/2 inches here from this guy to the other one that's on the steering column. And then we've got our center support here. So again, let's just recap. 36 spline here, 3/4 inch double D to double D, and then this one's going to be a double D to a 36 inch or 36 spline. Then we're going to add 3/4 to each end to get it to fit in here, so you have plenty of material to bite on. So that's a 1.5 inches overall on top of that measurement. Just makes it easy to measure, you know, right here, so you got it lined up. So what's this final product look like anyway? Let's take a look here. Oh man, got our new bearing put in, steering shaft. That looks good. We've got our spring. It's mounted up against the U-joint here. That's not going anywhere, and it's keeping pressure on the bearing, which keeps pressure on the steering shaft to keep that from falling out. Got the shaft coming down. Got her going right into that steering box down there. Boy, does that look good. Like I said, we full welded the 2 lower U-joints just for risk of vibration and grub screws falling out. We're pretty tight. But she'll be a beauty. I really hope you guys enjoyed watching that episode. Making that steering shaft was kind of fun. Makes your brain tingle a little bit. You know, you're messing around under there, you're in and out of the truck, trying to figure all those things out. I mean, it's a lot of fun if you got some spare time. It'd be nice if they offered that as a kit when you purchase the front end, but they don't, so that's something to watch out for. As always, we'll catch you next Friday. We really enjoy you guys watching our videos, sharing, liking, and subscribing. At this point, we have just under 20 subscribers to make it to 1,000, which will be a historical landmark for both the Holub project and YouTube. Me and Bob do have quite a bit of fun making these videos. They're more fun when we can get together and really knock them out. But we'll try and get more of those. Maybe when things tend to slow down a little bit in the fall.